You mentioned a couple other types of aircraft that are flying in the, to fight fires, and I think helicopters are as well. So that's a huge variety of airplanes. Can you give us a rundown of the types of planes that are out there and what their mission sets are?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you want to call it the wildland fighting um, air resource agenda, I mean, helicopters are a big part of it. So there's bucket ships. So, you'll see them carrying long lines with buckets, or now there's helicopters with internal tanks. There's initial attack helicrews on helicopters. So it's usually a bucket helicopter that has um, anywhere between four to, they'll carry four firefighters, and then other firefighters will follow. They're an initial attack resource. There's firefighters that rappel out of helicopters to perform initial attack. And the whole idea is get the fire while it's small before it can get big. So those are your kind of initial attack platforms. Smoke jumpers are a part of that initial attack platform, and in Twin Otters, Casa 212s. They use a DHC 8. They'll use the Dash 8, I believe the 200, or maybe it's the 100. So quite a variety in the that initial attack realm. And then when we get into dispersing retardants, we've got single engine air tankers carrying roughly 750 to 800 gallons. There's the CAL FIRE S2 fleet carrying, I believe, 1,200 gallons. And then we get into the large air tankers.
My dad used to fly S2s.
Okay, all right. So then we'll get into the large air tankers, and those can range from Q400s to MD87s to the BAE 146s, and they're working in the 2,800 gallons and above. And then once we get to 8,000 gallons and above, then it's very large air tanker. So in that large air tanker fleet, C-130s, 737s, MD-87s, BAE 146s, RJs, and then the VLAT realm, which right now is the DC-10, and then there was the 747, which is no longer in service as a tanker.
Wow, that's a lot. had no idea there were so many planes involved.
And so you're flying the big guy. Can you tell us specifically about the DC-10s you fly for 10 tanker over these fires, and some of the specialized equipment that you have that allows you to do the mission?
Our aircraft, obviously came from an airline background. In about, it was, I believe, in 2002, 2004 is when these retired DC-10s started to get a new life and be converted into tankers. And of course, the company started out with one, and through the years, it's turned into four. But what this airplane allowed was, its tall landing gear allowed them to hang a tank off the belly of the aircraft. And it looks like one tank, but it's actually three tanks, which total 9,400 gallons. So this tank originated from the helicopter fleet. So if you look at sky cranes, the tank that the sky crane has attached to it is essentially the DC-10 tank. So the tanks 1 and 3 are pretty much the same right off the helicopter. Tanks 2, the middle tank was expanded to carry 4,000 gallons as opposed to 2,700. So the three tanks work together with a tank controller, which allow us to drop sequentially one tank at a time for lighter coverage levels. And if we need larger coverage levels, we can drop all the tanks at the same time. I can explain coverage levels if you like.
Yeah, that's a lot of fire retardant. If I do my math right, that's about 60,000 pounds of stuff you're carrying.
It weighs about 9.1 gallons or 9.1 pounds per gallon. So it's about an 85,000 payload. And
when you drop all that stuff, it changes the center of gravity of the airplane. So you got to be thinking about that, right?
It does, yeah. Yeah, we're going from forward CG to aft CG during the drop. And depending on how quickly we release the retardant, the CG change can be slow. We could have about a 10 to 20 second time frame for that shift to happen. Or if we're dropping high coverage levels, that shift will happen in 4 to 5 seconds.
Oof.
Wow.
And that's
So
noticeable. Yeah.
so you have to have some pretty specialized training to manage an airplane with changing those, not only the airplane changing its flying characteristics so fast depending upon the mission, but just the coordination and how to do the mission appropriately. So what kind of training do you guys go through? It has to be pretty intense.
So the training is it's multifaceted. So for one, there's Forest Service provided training. Every 3 years, most tanker pilots are going to it's called the National Aerial Firefighter Academy. So within that training, we're essentially learning the system in which we operate and the processes of getting to and from a fire and why we drop certain coverage levels. And so that's kind of our ground foundational training. And then as we go out and work on fires, as a co-pilot, you're gathering and learning the processes and seeing how to integrate the aircraft into the fire traffic area. So a lot of it is on the job kind of training, and just immersing yourself in the environment. And then when you start, upgrading and start doing drops, then you're working with company instructors, and we have kind of breakout ground lessons where we're learning how to fly the aircraft as well as apply the retardant to the spot it needs to go. So we're learning about drift, kind of building our gun sight on where we say start and stop for these drops, and working on our accuracy.